This is episode 340 of the Gold Squadron podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Will, Armchair Captain Hegwood, and tonight I'm joined by Marcel, second best player in my own house, Manzano.
I think we're the first married couple to qualify for Worlds. So, yay.
That's awesome to hear. Ryan, definitely on time. Staniszewski. That's a pun. We also have James. We're all fine here. How are you, Ritter?
I had a rough weekend, but I think I'm back at 100.
And speaking,
how are you?
I'm doing terrible, actually. But
that sounds kind of like he didn't want to stay up Saturday night, and it's like the day that you have a big meeting at work, and you're like, I don't feel so good, but then the next day you're like, it was just a stomach flu. That sounds like
I wish it was as simple as that.
Well, we also have some guests introducing your XTC champions, Team USA, starting with Doug Howe in first order.
Hey, how's it going?
Levi Schott as our Rebel player.
Hello there.
Steve Q. Tilo, our Imperial player.
Long live the Empire.
Stephen Weiland, our Republic player.
Hey, everybody.
Also, Kenneth Lyon, Team USA's coach.
Hello.
And Chris P., one of our substitutes.
Howdy, howdy.
And just coming in now, Joel Springle, Team USA's MVP, right on time for his introduction.
That's hilarious because I came home from work and slept until about 20 minutes ago.
There you go. Right on time for the podcast introduction. There you have it. The XTC champions. We're going to be talking a lot. So glad you guys can join us tonight to talk this XTC. Before, though, we start, of course, we got to give a shout out to the GSB patrons. They're our largest group of supporters. They get us 2 events like LVO we have coming up in January. Also, patrons get access to specific channels in our Discord and shareable art from our past projects. You gotta check out what kind of art Dylan has posted at patreon.com/goldsquadron. Well, where should we start? I guess we might as well just pull up the record here. For those of you who don't know, USA entered into a team competition after we did a combine to get recruitment for players, did a group stage of 5 rounds, barely getting through, had to take on some tough opponents, and then gets to the final, a 10-team round robin, 9 rounds over 2 days on European time, 5 a.m. UTC, which you would think would give us advantage, not this week, or a disadvantage, but not this weekend. United States of America goes 8-1 in their team rankings with 32 individual wins. That's as a non-playing captain, I can't be prouder. Honestly, it has been a humbling experience, to say the least, from my angle. All that practice, all the hard work, ended up paying off for everybody. But you've been here with me and Marcel talking about XTC for weeks. Who I want to hear about XTC from is the players. Joel, we're going to start with you. I know you just jumped in. We're going to start with you because you were our MVP. Ended up going 7-1-1, if I'm not mistaken. 7-1-1.
That is correct.
and the individual standings there. Played all 9 games. Very proud of you, man. And this is a little inside baseball. We about switched your list halfway through. Or not halfway through the event, but before the finals.
I'm really glad we didn't. The switches, I think, were to lists that were objectively better against the whole field, but weren't as good against the things that Ken got me paired up against. It's because of Poe, it's capable of bullying other lists that rely on high initiative in a way that a bunch of T70s or T70s and Zori really can't. And I managed to use Poe to steer those high initiative ships that don't want to be in front of a bunch of T70s. I would herd them in front of a bunch of T70s. It's only 3. It's not as bad. Well, with my list, instead of being quantity where everybody is single modified, the only ship in my list that was firing single modified with any regularity at all was Temin. Everybody else usually had at least an extra reroll or something. And that means my lower number of shots matter more, and those aces just go melt.
I believe I got your list pulled up here, just shoving as much modification into Poe as possible. Combined with their pilot ability to be getting free boost, flying over obstacles, and even barrel rolling. How many times did you barrel roll that Poe? Do you remember? Is it something you do often?
It's not that frequent. When I was months ago, last spring, starting to play him, it took me a while to realize that the barrel roll would matter, and then I used it a ton, and then I started to realize that simply having the free repositioning in my back pocket was usually more valuable than using it, because the opponent had to allow for it. Oh god, this Poe could be anywhere. Well, you're darn right he could.
Or you could just win
I'd
straight.
be surprised if I barrel rolled more than maybe 9 times the entire event.
Oh, so almost like once per game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Now, the free boost, that came up a lot. That got used 2-3 times per game. I boosted as my action a couple of times per game because the previous round I had already used my Poe points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you can fly through an obstacle every round, but you can only boost every other round.
Precisely.
Reposition.
And that would be, why I end up taking the boost action a couple of times would be because I just ran something over. Which is another way that it's something that the lists that are set up to take out Han, you would think would be good to take out this, but those lists rely on obstacle placement, and Poe does not care.
True. Very true. What about anything else? Joel, your experience, I know you're having concerns about the time zone, but you seem to handle it just fine.
I discovered, I did a couple of things. I stayed up later than I should a couple of nights in a row ahead of time, which made me drag some at work, and it meant Friday I was completely dead to the world. I also, Thursday, one of my coworkers was just sick as a dog, and I was feeling sniffly and getting a headache and stuff. So I ended up calling off Friday. I didn't wake up until 10:30 in the morning Friday, which is very unusual for me. If I'm up after 8 in the morning, it's like, what in the world happened? I took another 3-hour nap in the evening because I could not stay conscious. Once the game started, well, you see, I have ADHD, and one of my strongest symptoms is actually the ability to hyperfocus. When I'm on the medicine, the hyperfocus tends not to be there. The medicine wears off sometime in the evening, and I had no idea this was going to happen, but I spent 10.5 hours basically in hyperfocus, which meant the whole fatigue thing, I just didn't notice. And then when it was over, I was wired and couldn't sleep for hours afterwards because my brain would not get back to normal. It was great for the event, it was terrible at work today because I was dragging so hard.
I bet. I mean, the wins just kept coming. If I remember right, we got. Oh, actually, you know what? Why would I remember? I have it right pulled up right here. We can just take a look at the games. That's an actual sweep of Colombia, as a note. Shout out.
Yes.
Shout out to Colombia. They had to drop out for a couple of reasons, but they made it into the finals, so we're real proud of them. Hope to see them next year as well. We 3-2'd Australia in the second round, 4-1 to Mexico in the third, and 3-2'd New Zealand in the fourth, and then the fall of America in round 5. Everybody was up way too late, failing. I just remember our chat was just like a losing record, and then I hit 2 rocks. And then the next person came in, losing record. I hit 2 rocks. It was the way.
What happened that round, guys?
I specifically remember setting up turn 0. I was great. Set my dials for turn 1, doing 5. Fine. Time to move my ships, and I was like, oh god, it's 8:30 in the morning, and I've been up for like 20 hours, and it was like wall. And the rest of that game, I was just struggling to remember how ships moved.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the rocks got bigger that last round.
Yeah, somehow I don't know what France's cheat code was, but they're like magnets.
I think they moved the rocks.
I think France's cheat code was late afternoon.
Yeah, their cheat code is called like 5 in the afternoon.
It did.
Being fair, it's also called being very good players. They had inconsistent results.
Yeah, France, actually one of our personal MVPs, because they took out Canada and I think Australia, if I'm not mistaken. Wasn't that Australia's other loss?
Yeah. They beat everybody from not Europe and lost or drew everybody from Europe. They were the wild cards.
Joel saving us. I had those records pulled up. But Joel saved us from a sweep that round. We didn't get any wins, but Joel did tie, and that counts for something, which means we were never swept the whole tournament. Let's see. We'll get to the rest of you guys. Don't worry. I just want to I have this pulled up. Round 6. We did 4-1 England. We were very proud of that. That really got our butts in motion for the second day, as we went 5 and then 4 rounds. So 6, 7, 8, 9 were day 2. We did sweep Germany, and then maybe our toughest battle of the event against Canada, who was also in the running to take it all. We ended up 4-1ing them. Very proud of that. And finished off the event, which is interesting because how it worked out is that Australia had already solidified 31 wins at X and 2. You had to beat individual wins, or at least tie, and then go to head-to-head. So team wins, individual wins, then head-to-head were the tiebreakers, which meant that at that point in time, we were 3 wins behind Australia. We were at 28 going into the last round, which meant that we couldn't lose to Wales. If we lost to Wales, Australia takes it all. So we still had to get those 3 wins. We did 4-1 to solidify us into first place. But let's keep it going here. Let's see. Doug, this is kind of a GSP. Oh, I guess GSP's tradition is normally the opposite. We normally go worst to best, but we're going best to worst here. Doug, you had, I think 17.
Real quick, I would like to say there wasn't really a worst. There was a best and a almost as best.
Yeah.
It's true.
When every single one of us finished at better than 500, there's no such thing as a worst.
That's true. That's true. You guys did all great. Doug, you played, though, again, amazing performance. Played all 9 rounds. Thank you so much for that commitment. You somehow played First Order and Imperials. Still never got that figured out.
No, it bugged and kept wanting to make me Empire, but I did play First Order.
All right, tell us about your list and your experience.
So I ran Silencer Kylo with Instinctive Aim, Lone Wolf, Advanced Optics, and Proton Torpedoes, Gaelic with Proud Tradition HLC, Malorus with Mag Pulse, LeHughes with Marksmanship, Barrage Rocket, Special Forces Gunner, and DT with Deuterium. So I think 5-ship FO is pretty standard at this point. I think the only quote weird thing is I did Silencer Kylo instead of like 2 5-pointers, which is usually like a Wilo Blackout or something. But I don't like Whispers, and I really like Silencer Kylo, so I opted to go that route. And I mean, he's just a monster. Like the premise of the list is I have 4 ships that stay alive as long as possible, while Kylo throws 4 dice at stuff, and it went pretty well.
Yeah, you were on stream quite a bit for Firecast. They were interested in seeing this Silencer Kylo. We did have you on a game as well, though normally you did hit 2 rocks in one Kylo move. Which was...
I did manage to do that. I stared at a Talon roll for about 30 seconds, and I think that was that round 8 or 9. I was pretty tired at that point, and I was like, you know what, it's gonna fit. I'm confident, and it did not. And so I Talon rolled over 1 rock directly onto another. And to be fair, unexpected, my opponent did not see it coming. And after that turn, Kylo was in a great position, so it was fine.
I have to ask, how much damage did you take doing that?
I took 3 damage, and then Kylo lived with 3 hull. He didn't take any damage from any ships, just rocks. So
yeah, that's worth it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Worth it.
Yeah, I mean I think the only other thing is I think Gaelic throws people off a lot because most people either run like Scorch as their third 3-point TIFO, or they'll do like the Ion Cannon build on them. And I think the HLC is super clutch. It doesn't trigger every game, but it's great for like Arcs or Hans and things like that. And it lets you get a 3-point ship that can wallop whenever it's key to. And Proud Tradition's great. There were multiple games where I'd like sloop and then take the focus, and then like white moves would just be the best move, so I just keep doing white moves and focusing, which focuses his action 90% of the time anyway. So it's nice to not have to deal with stress.
Did anyone ever flip Proud, Doug?
No. Not once. I don't think anybody even asked. Like I think it's luckily because it's 4 5s and a 4, so I can shoot him in the middle of the order before people know if they need their focus or not. And I don't think people are willing to take a crit to make the 3-point ship a little bit worse.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Fair.
It turns out I just start locking after that, or evading.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I had such a great time, and super proud of everybody. It's awesome.
Fantastic to hear. Let's see. So you flew First Order. Who's next in our records here? That's Steven. Steven, 6-3 with a 6-ship Republic squad. Steven, what was your experience?
Amazing experience. It was super fun to run 6 brothers. So all clones in the list. So starting with Sock Oddball with Selfless R4P Veteran Tail. Switched after the group stage to what I flew in the final. So accompanying Oddball was Custom Wolf with Veteran Tail Gunner R4P Astromech, which was really clutch on him because your Sock Wolf is that Astromech is pretty much dead in the water. And then the last 2 points on Custom Wolf, I had Tactical Scrambler, which did trigger a few times where it's like he was an obstruction. It was like, oh, you want to shoot at somebody else? It's like, well, they're gonna get an extra agility. So that was super fun when that triggered. And then Wolf is just monster with his ability. And then the rest of the list rounding out. So had Contrail in the V-wing with Crackshot, R4P Astromech, the batch configuration, and ion bombs. The first of 4 bombers to round out the list. Click also in the V-Wing with marksmanship, R3 astromech, best configuration, and seismic charges. And then 2 Y-Wings starting with matchstick, ion cannon turret, and concussion bombs. And then broadside rounding out the list with ion cannon turret and proton bombs. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where every match like I was in, like my 3 losses were all, I mean, razor close losses. And then, yeah, when like the control between the ion cannon turrets and all the bombs out on the table. I think there was one round that I got to drop all 4 in the same round, which was that was literally a blast and a half. And day 2 is just had some really good matchups. The one that I went into feeling a little bit nervous, like it was a 5-ship resistance, and was just able to kill enough and push enough buttons to hold on. I think it was 20 to 19 or 19-18, so razor close. And then the match, I guess the match that I think was probably most memorable was round 8 against Canada. Was up against Andrew Oler, who had all the suck arcs and then 2 torrents, and I think it was boost, and that match was just razor close all the way through. And it came down going into the last round, I think we were tied, and he had his Jag was limping on one hull and was able to get a range 3 shot with Wolf to take him off the board and seal the win. And it was just really awesome match, and Andrew's just an outstanding opponent and an amazing X-Wing player. So that's definitely the one that I think, looking back on, is just that was just, really an instant classic. And just to be able to push us to 4-1 against Canada, that was an amazing feeling.
So I did want to ask you about, I think we were the Republic squad with the fewest born for this abilities. You only have it on ball. You got no torrents. Yep. You got it. You have customizable Wolf. Did that, as someone who was coming off of triple arc, how did that really affect your play in this list?
It's definitely you definitely wanted to make sure that oddball was in range 2, and then you just have to maximize the 1 token when you need to pass it. I think the one thing that having multiple ion cannon turrets and having all those bombs, that it's just you're able to control the board in a way that felt more valuable than I can pass a focus token. And especially when most of those lists are 1 and 2 agility ships. It's how often are you actually passing it to where it's making a big difference? I think typically if they were shooting into, if it was contrail or click, if they didn't take a focus because they wanted to grab the lock for the best configuration enhancement, that oddball's all right, I've got you covered. I'll take that strain to pass the focus over. So, but I think it definitely flies differently, but I think the consistency of the damage output across, all those multiple ships, whether it's broadside with just his ability, and matchstick having multiple rerolls, whether it's a primary or ion cannon turret, just makes damage really steady throughout. And then on the rounds where you can spike it with bomb damage, it really brings it home.
I think something that caught me off guard was he just brought 4 bombs. That's a lot of bombs, but also 4 different bombs. How did you decide which bombs to take and who to take them on?
Yeah, for certain. So for some of it was just knowing with broadside, it's a no-brainer. The proton bombs is because that fits the loadout perfectly. And then seismic charges on click is that those were carried over from the group stage. And then I think it was one of those things where when Crispy and I were theory crafting the list and really kind of bringing it home, was just to decide which bomb should go where, and Contrail moving at I5 really can put him in a position where he has more knowledge of the board, so having the ion bombs on him makes a lot of sense. And matchstick is for the most part, he really wants to get in the thick of it so that he can maximize his ion cannon turret. And so once something is ion, it's like, well, you're going to be going into a concussion bomb for as long as this match deck is going to live. And I felt like often enough that a lot of times the Y-wings would just kind of get ignored if people went for the arcs. And then sometimes it's an opponent would go after the Y-wings and then left the arcs to really kind of bring it home at the end. And so, having each of the different bombs was a lot of fun, and then just making sure to get the right amount of practice so that you're putting them in a position for success. But yeah, it was that's what we came to the final decision, and yeah, definitely paid off, especially in day 2. And great run in day 2 was able to go 4-0 and just made sure that every round that we were pushing those 4 and 5 wins.
Yeah, it's doing work out there. And I think that might have been one of USA's strengths, is that we did, I think, have, other than maybe Han, very unique lists that weren't replicated in the tournament otherwise.
Well, I think Joel was the only not 5-ship resistance in.
Correct.
The
only, the only 4-ship resistance and the only Poe Falcon for resistance.
Yeah, all of the other 8 lists were either 5 X-wings or 4 X-wings in Zori.
There were some 3X plus 2 as well.
It was
yeah, my bad. 3 X-wings, Zori, and somebody else. All right.
They love
a lot of 5x4.
Ah, yes, Lulo.
Yeah, a lot of people were taking the Swarm Jess, and then ZZ or Zori and Lulo. But turns out if all your opponents run in the same list, it's easier to practice against.
For certain.
All right, well, let's keep going. Speaking of our Rebel player, we have Levi Shantz here with a record. Ended up going 5-2. Had some substitutes come in to fill out. We'll talk about that in a bit. Levi, what'd you fly? How'd you do? Or how was your experience? I just said how you did.
Yeah, no, it was really great. It was actually my first Worlds level event, so it was very exciting, especially just to do so well and just love the team and love just everything about it. I'm just so excited. I've got this big grin on my face since Friday, so it's been awesome. But yeah, I was flying some pretty standard Rebel meta stuff. Han with the chopper and engine upgrade version, Boy Luke, of course, Wedge with crackshot and marksmanship, Keo with lone wolf concussion, and then Sabine. I guess, I don't know, maybe the biggest difference is Wedge instead of Hull. I will say, Will, you gave a very good argument for Hull, but for me, at least, it boiled down to I really like the speed of the A-wings, just being able to zip around and just kind of be wherever they want. And also, you said that we should be able to fly the list in our sleep, and I'm like, I just won't have enough time to practice Hull to do that. So, Wedge was the choice.
That Y-wing flies very differently to an A-wing, especially an advanced proton variant.
Yeah, so I knew my limits, and I was like, I don't think I'd have enough time just to practice it. So went with Wedge, and I thought he did good. When him and Luke and sometimes Keo were able to shoot the same thing, while Han was just being a distraction, it worked out really well.
Awesome. Have any high points of the event?
High points? I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to think. It was all high point.
It was all a blur, huh?
Yeah. It was really fun to play people from all over the world. Most of my opponents were just really awesome, and it was just a lot of fun. I had a lot of just conversations. We were laughing about stuff, and I don't remember who it was, but I was playing up against an Imperial, and we're talking about how we both have 2-point I3 TIE fighters, but his has nothing, and mine has supernatural reflexes and a makeshift shield upgrade. So
yeah, look, making making academies and Empire TIE fighters look real silly out there with Sabine.
Yeah, that poor Black Squadron was very jealous of Sabine.
It's
but
like, I could barrel too.
But yeah, it was just I'm just so excited, so happy for the team that we were able to pull it through, and just it's awesome.
Yeah, we really needed that. The Hans were a menace. I think every single Rebel list had a Han +3 or Han +4. So having a strong backbone for our own Han certainly was very helpful. Let's keep going down here. Now we're going pretty far because I think the rest of our players didn't play every or not as many rounds.
Yeah, because I believe Crispy subbed in for Steve for 4 rounds, and Marcel subbed in for Levi for 2, I think.
Yeah, we'll go to Crispy with that 3-1 record. Crispy mostly subbed out for Steve then, playing the Galactic Empire.
Yes, sir. And it was a good time. And I'm glad that Steve got to rest while I was playing, and then I got to sleep at a somewhat more reasonable hour than you guys. Steve finished up.
Yeah, we really were trying to utilize our extra players. We were fortunate to have 2 subs to jump in. Crispy, you had double medical emergencies this weekend. Are you feeling okay?
I'm fine now. Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
Don't worry about me.
You had us worried on Saturday.
Listen, I only need one eye to play, and I don't need my legs either. So to sit in a chair and just play some X-Wing is perfectly fine.
That's awesome.
It's a gift. A gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, we were amazing to have you. Speaking of, though, the Imperial list, why don't we break it down here? Steve, you ended up going 3-2, so very respectable. And you were flying. It's very funny in the spreadsheet that Cordray had mocked up for himself, and kind enough to share it to us. He just labeled everything either a Vader or a Decimator list.
Why stop at 1?
Yeah, why? Why choose?
That's right. If those are the 2 best pieces, why not just play both of them?
Yeah, tell us about your list.
Yeah, so the list that Crispy and I flew for the finals was Morna Key in the Decimator with Ruthless Death Troopers, Fifth Brother, Thermal Detonators, and Dauntless. Countdown with Ruthless, Disciplined, and Shield Upgrade. Tomax Bren, the new standard loadout one, and Boy Vader. I remember when Will asked me to be the Imperial player after the Combine, I was like, I don't know if Imperial's all that strong right now. Maybe you want to go with the Separatist player, but I'm glad he chose me. And the one thing he said was just no Decimators this year. And what do? We threw in a Decimator. Sorry about that, Will.
I was convinced of it. I was saying, I don't know how Crispy and Steve Brigade wins with this list, but,
Well, that's actually, I think what's worth talking about here is that I think because Imperials are in a little bit of a weaker spot compared to Resistance, Rebels, and Republic, at least, I think the way that you win is go against the meta. I think that one of the things that XTC maybe brings out even more than in other formats is you just see a ton of meta lists. I think it's probably harder for people to convince their teams that their own homebrew list is better than your meta list. So in the XTC, you see even more meta lists. And we saw it this year, maybe even more so than previous years, where it was just every single list was, 5X or 3 arcs or Han Solo. And so when I brought this list out, I planned it against the Han Solo Rebels and the 3 arc Republic. And I think that's that's why I made the choices that I did. The first thing you notice is Morna instead of Rack. Most people just immediately go to Rack, and I think for good reason. Rack's fantastic, but if you want to outjoust anything, Morna's your girl, because Morna can outjoust 3 arcs. And so if you're playing against 3 arcs and they line up Jag across from you, you just set up Morna right across from that, go right at it, because they're not going to win that joust. They get 4 damage on you, even with Padme firing proton torpedoes, and then you're just in their face. And Rack just can't do that. I think Morna was the right meta call for that, as well as with Han. If you can just get in the way of Han, if you can block him, if you can stop him from getting his focus by either making him choose not to stress focus, because then he's going to be death troopered for the rest of the match, or just set up so that he doesn't have anywhere to escape to. Then you can kind of lock him down. And I think the strength of the list was really that there was no good targets. I mean, Morna is going to take you forever to take down. A lot of people either just chose to go for Morna or Vader, usually not both. Vader can brawl with the best of them, and Countdown is just frustrating as all get out to try to fight. And so all you really have is Tomax, and he's the 3-pointer that you're only going to try and shoot those 2 plasmas anyway. And I think that's really what made the list strong.
Yeah, I can't imagine how frustrating it would be as a Republic player to line up against Morna and do 4 damage with the entire barrage.
Yep. And then you're in their face.
Like, I didn't even get the shields down yet.
Yeah. My last match against Wales, that's kind of what happened. Just Morna against all of the arcs, and I think she took 5 damage, and then she just broke up the formation.
Yeah, that sounds miserable to play against.
Yeah, and the new Tomax is so good to go with her because he can throw the plasmas in there, and then Morna takes down the 2 of them take down most of an arc with 2 shots.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it turns out the other great strategy to play in the middle of the night is only play half of it. And it's great when you've got your sub that's better than the starter, and that's Crispy. And taking 4 of those matches so that I could start in the early morning, and he could start in the late night, just worked out real well.
Yeah, that actually brings me to a question I had for, I guess, like Will and like the scheduling of the team is, what are you thinking putting Crispy on the bench? One of the best players in America and maybe even in the world. I think a lot of people were sad to see Crispy on the bench, but man, it's hard to just choose 5 players, and I think between the combine and having the availability of all these great players here gave you some hard choices. So, I mean,
we leaned into
how'd you
them.
choose to?
Oh, sorry.
How'd you choose to set up the actual team for the finals?
Well, as far as the scheduling, that was up to those 2. That it just worked out best for them too. And then I wanted them free as much as possible to be able to jump in, whether internet issues or falling asleep at the keyboard. I was hoping to lean into those subs if necessary, especially with the weird time zone. You never know what's going to happen. Luckily, we didn't need to put out any fires. No real emergencies happened. But yeah, we're just trying to use that depth for it. Steve and Crispy, as they said, they thought that was the best schedule for both of their performances, and from the results, I would have to agree.
So to answer my question, you chose not to choose, and then just had them both play essentially.
Well, I would like to also toss in the fact that during group stages, Crispy as a sub was extremely valuable instead of being locked into one faction.
Oh man!
So as you mentioned, he's one of the best players in the world, and he can jump from faction to faction and play that list at a world caliber.
Fun. Yeah, this is what he does on a daily basis. Just like finds like wacky things. Is like, well, I could probably play this pretty well, and then like wins events with it. So, yeah, I can imagine he could play a meta list pretty well, even if it's not something that he's practiced a ton.
Yeah, that is true.
Does that sound right, Crispy?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, anyone who's seen me sort of bring stuff to tournaments knows that it's not what anyone would particularly call meta, but
I mean, it is after you're done with it. Like usually.
3 words: electroproton bomb, deathfire.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, good times. But yeah, no, like being able to like help anyone out, and also for practice. Specifically like for Steven or for Levi, being able to like get practice games in with them with Foe or Empire or any of the factions that I'm familiar with, while also being able to understand and like go through them with their list. So in case I needed to step up and play it, I think for group stage I only needed to help out Joel and Steve, but you know it worked out in the end, and I'm really happy with the team, and I don't know, I'd do it again. It was less work for me and all the glory. So
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that I wanted to kind of share too, is like one of the greatest things from Team USA was just, I mean, how much it was team. You know, we just had so many players. Like I really want to give a shout out to Steven, who must have played 3 or 4 games every week, just helping everybody out. For Crispy, you know, playing against every list, playing all of those lists. It was just an amazing experience to have all of these amazing teammates to really work together to figure out the puzzle and to get those wins.
Yeah, echoing what Steve said, it's just, I mean, everyone supported one another, and when you're having, I mean, practice matches with world-class players, like it only is going to help prepare you for matches, and like whether it was practice matches or, I mean, matchup analysis, like everyone vested into one another and just supported one another, like even when things got tense, and like whether it was the group, like during the group stage, or like after we lost to France, it's like everyone's like, nope, we got this, and we're gonna pick one another up, and that was consistent from day one, and just an amazing team, and the end result, I mean, showed as the strength of the team, and how much we just we looked out for one another, and yeah, just amazing experience, and yeah, everyone on this team is just fantastic in how they looked out for one another. So yeah.
It also helps when everyone around here is like the nicest human being in the world, and makes it feel like, you know, you're just some mean old miser.
That does remind me about that round 5. We're all very defeated by the losing 4 games to France. But if I remember right, that was the round that Mexico beat Canada. So we.
Yes, it
It was indeed.
Yeah, so we still got a moral victory because Canada, with our loss, that means we were no longer undefeated, which left Canada as the only undefeated. But Mexico got the win on them, which was at least it ended the day on a high note that even if we had taken a loss, every other team had taken a loss as well. So we were still very much in the running.
The memes were flowing after Mexico pulled that upset.
We were rooting for Mexico. I would say Mexico and France, USA's secret MVPs, getting wins on Canada and Australia. Beautiful to see.
I mean, despite France beating us, France was also a pretty hefty part of that, beating Canada and Australia.
Yeah. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't want
France
to...
had some like weird stats of beating out a lot of the top other teams, but then not performing well against some of the other teams like at their level. It had like funny stats.
Right. Before we get off individual players, though, Marcel as well, one of our substitutes, able to jump in, went 1-1, still 50% record there. Marcel, who did you jump in for?
For Levi, I played the games 4 and 5, and then I was supposed to play game 9, but there was just a bit of miscommunication on game 9. But yeah, so I played game 4 and 5, and yeah, you can't, Levi was amazing the whole way through, and so was everyone else. This is, what is it? I think I'm the only one that like I was there from like the original Team USA, from like traveling to Poland, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, like, it's progressively gotten better every year. Not just the results. I mean, I think the results have gotten better every year, but also just like the atmosphere and the excitement and like the camaraderie. So I was really, really happy with the way things turned out. And like Crispy said earlier, like not as much of the effort, but just as much of the glory. Like I'm gonna take that swag just along with everyone else. I slept through day 2. I don't care. I woke up. I was just as happy as everyone else on day 2. After I woke up and found out that we had taken it. So super happy with the team selection. Super happy with the way things turned out. Yeah, it was just a really, really great to see everything, and I was really excited to see. Well, I was really happy to see the excitement on some of the new team members. Like Joel's, Levi, Steven, Crispy. Just the. I think. No knock on us old heads. The Doug, Steve, Kenny, all of us. But it was nice to see like that new blood energy and excitement. It's kind of like it revitalizes the scene a little bit. So I was happy for that. And also we cannot forget to just give a big shout out to all the combine people, all the people that signed up for the combine and took part in that. Kind of helped narrow down who we ended up selecting at the end of the day. There was a lot of good players that were not selected. That there was no fussing. There was no like, hey, how come I'm not part of the team, or this or that. It was just a really positive process the whole way through. So yeah, just happy to
Yeah, I wouldn't sell
be
yourself
part of
too
it and
short,
contribute. Yeah.
Marcel. I mean, you're one of the James was basically the Combine's TO, but Marcel helped spearhead that event after we'll say some complications in the selection process. USA does have probably the largest player base, I would imagine, from any country. So that process in the previous years, to touch on it, we more or less just had handpicked some players. And the previous year, I think we just went with all the same people, same captain, same coach, same players.
Well, last year we went with the same people. 2 years ago, I didn't do a combine, but I did an application.
Mm-hmm.
But there was only like a couple play-ins. I think Steve was a play-in. Steve against Dutch. I think it was the play-in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was mostly like hand selected, 1 or 2 play-ins, and then last year was just straight up like, if you were on the team the year before, you're on the team now. Congratulations.
Right.
So yeah, this was
well, we didn't know if it was going to continue. Last year was
it was the 2.5
kind of end of
the 2.5 mark. Yeah,
the staying at home. So with real life happening, we didn't know the commitment.
Also, last year there wasn't a whole lot of warning, was there? From what I recall.
No, we had like 3 weeks.
yeah, it was pretty abrupt process to do it. But we want, like you said. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, not last but not least, also Kenneth, doing the pairings.
I super want to shout out Kenneth.
I would say it's a pretty big part of the.
Joel's our MVP, and it's completely deserved. But I think Kenneth should be our honorary MVP because I think all of us would have performed much worse if we were having to do our pairings and not him.
Yeah.
I want to toss in because I was looking at that sheet early in the thing, and I've got it in front of me now. We had matchups rated on 1 through 4. Higher is better. We had a grand total of 5 2s the entire event, and not a single 1. out of 45 matches, we had 5 matches that we felt were less than pretty good for us. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, looking at that spreadsheet, Kenneth, it gave me all of the good vibes because I love stats and I love spreadsheets. So seeing that was a thing of beauty, and good job.
In that case, I would like to give most of the credit to Steven because he did most of the architecture, and also helped a lot with the data input.
Awesome. Conjoined effort.
There's a weekly highlight to just be able to list data nerd out with Kenneth and put in opponent lists and just get good stuff set up so that we could all go in and put in like how we felt about the matchups. And yeah, Kenneth is just he's an absolute wizard when it comes to like matchups. And so like every round you look around, it's like, yep, we've got mostly 3s and 4s, and yeah, it's just he put us in position every single round to be successful. And yeah, we don't win this if we don't have Kenneth doing what he does best.
Well, it makes my job a lot easier when I have a lot of really good players to pair with.
Yeah, can you tell us some things about the pairing process? Actually, at least Mexico. We'll have to talk more about later. But everyone was praising the pairing process, getting those good matchups. Is there any secrets, any like go-to methods that you're utilizing for those pairings?
I mean, part of it is just like depending on what the final matrix ends up looking like. Usually there's a really obvious, well, this guy's only got one bad matchup, so we want to put him out first because then we can guarantee functionally that he gets a positive matchup. Not always the case. Like in one case, I think the game against Mexico, actually, it was Mexico or New Zealand, where their Empire list just nobody wanted to touch the 10-foot pole. So we kind of had to pair around that in such a way that we could.
Was that the defender?
Try to give them. No, it was. Let me see if I can't find it.
Who ended up playing against that defender Vader list?
Oh, against
that was me.
Yeah,
it was Vader, Backstabber, Mauler, Volt, and Tomac. So it was all 5s and Vader.
Oh.
It was all 5s with 3-die guns and Vader.
Yeah. That makes sense. That does sound scary. You said Levi that you played against the Defender Vader?
Yeah. It was. I mean, Defender Vader is scary, obviously, but Bombers go pop. Got a couple of early crits in with on him, and so just kind of ignored Vader and had him on objectives the whole time, and it was Han got a little scared because Vader was on his tail, but at the beginning, but then that just left the rest of my list open to do whatever they wanted with the bombers and objectives. So it wasn't too bad, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what it was New Zealand's first order list. Now that I'm looking at everything again, where I think we had to have a conversation beforehand, and Steve was like, "All right, I know that it's marked as a 2 here because it's first order versus Empire, but I think I can beat it." And it helped a lot, but at the same time, like that list was
I couldn't
in the scenario was, yeah, it was for the scenario versus our list hard to pair around, and it made
Yeah, it's
choices a little less awkward or more awkward.
Just to clarify on that list, it looks like it was Kylo, Silencer, and Malorus, Rush, and Vonreg.
Yes. And I think the big problem was the scenario was scramble that round. And so, Rush is a 2, so he can block people off scenarios pretty easily. And then when he's not a 2, he's a 6, so he can flip the switches pretty easily. And then Vonreg's a 6 who can mod his shot and flip the switch. Kylo is obviously Kylo. And Malorus can, flip the switch and mod their shots. Like, it is a hard matchup for a lot of people in Scramble. If you're like, especially like for Levi, where his I6 needs to be taking the focus action, so it can't be flipping the Scramble, which means Von Reg or later on Rush is going to have a hard time, or going to have an easier time holding those points. Poe kind of doesn't want to sit in the same spot and flip switches. Kind of wants to not get shot. So it was hard to see good matchups there. Like Steven's very matchup agnostic just by virtue of being a good Republic list. So he was usually like the default, I need a reason not to lead Steven. And that's just sort of how that went.
Yeah, the match ended up being really interesting. It was a 19-20 loss for us. Really good props to the New Zealand player. It was interesting. I only killed Maurus. All the rest of the points were from scenario points. He kind of gave me the scenarios, and in return, he killed my ships. And I could not kill either Kylo or Von Reg. Didn't even try to kill Rush. But it was real close. It was a really great game.
It turns out he came to play Chance Engagement. You played. You were playing Scramble. You were playing two different scenarios.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Kenneth, anything else about pairings, your experience, anything like that?
Well, I mean, one thing I did notice is just because right before you guys went live, I was looking over all the pairings and did a count on who got led and who was the first attacker chosen, and it was pretty even on like Steven. It was 3 leads for Steven, 2 for Doug, 2 or 3 for Levi, 1 for Joel and Steve, and which is a pretty even spread. But Doug was in that first set of attackers like basically every round, partly because we all know that Doug Howe is a monster. But like I think that shows like the strength of the
no credit.
Yeah. It also shows just how strong First Order is in general. It can be led.
Leader.
Take it all. Take it all. But yeah, like Republic is a very good all-comers faction. First Order is very good at what it's good at, and it's good at a lot of things. A lot of people came with lists that were teched out for Han or were just generally good against Han, which made Levi's life a little bit harder, especially when he had to take the resistance matchups. But it's like what Joel was saying, like having some of the Poe Falcon that no one was prepared for, or no one was super expecting, or Steven's Republic list where it wasn't super born for this, but it was still like it was very good at what it did, and all the bomb control. And Doug with Kylo Silencer over Whisper, all these little things where people were prepping very hard for what ended up being the meta, like 8 out of 10 teams or something, helped a lot.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Like, it was the strength. Joel quoted me that you're gonna literally had to fly your list in your sleep. So
yes,
we kind of bucked all the trends of like let's just go with what got us to the final stage and know what the players are most comfortable with, to be able to literally fly until 3 or 4 in the morning.
Yeah, and then once they actually started falling asleep, they hit rocks. But hey,
yeah,
that happened.
yeah. Game 5 all night hurt us, but otherwise,
yeah.
I thought you guys did the best you could, which was a lot.
Before we let everyone else go, I think Ryan jumped on, and I know that James was in our XTC USA chat. You're the captain, Will. I was involved. So I don't, Ryan, you have any questions for the guys, or any questions about the tournament in general?
Who got the best and who got the worst sleep?
Well, I got the best sleep. That I think that's given. I slept day 2.
Confirmed Marcel got best sleep.
Yeah, I got best sleep. So the worst sleep. Who got the worst sleep?
I'm in competition for best sleep only because I had today off work. So I made myself stay up until 8 p.m. Sunday night, and then I slept for 15 straight hours.
Wow.
I did not intend to sleep that
Yeah.
long, but I also didn't make myself get up.
On Saturday, I had 2 2-hour naps. That was it between the games ending Saturday and starting Sunday. And then Sunday, I laid down and tried, and I slept for a grand total of about a half an hour before I went to bed at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I think Joel takes the prize for worst sleep because I got 6 hours before like Friday Saturday matches, and then got another 6 hours for the Saturday to Sunday matches. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
Joel takes the prize, both MVP and
Yeah,
worst sleep.
MVP and worst sleep. All you need is just that hyper focus, right?
Yep, that's what it is.
So
I will
and-
say, like, I wasn't exactly playing, but the Friday matches specifically, because it started over here at 9, and I had to work in the morning. So I think I was awake for 26 hours by the time I got to sleep before the day 2.
I
Okay.
did not
Part of
do
that-
that, so nice.
Yeah. Part of that's the insomnia helping keeping me awake, but at the same time, like, I did the same thing last year, and the year before that. It's not fun. I don't recommend doing it.
No, I was
So, what was the longest? Was it pretty equal for stretch of games, or was it which day was there a day with 5 games, day with 4 games? Since it was
5.
9, right?
Friday.
5 then 4.
Friday had 5.
Yeah.
Got it.
Which is why we were talking
Um,
that 5th game almost sweep from
Yeah.
France because that's where we hit our limit.
So yeah, we were undefeated in the first 4 matches of the day.
Yeah. Luckily, Canada as well was feeling that fatigue, and they lost their round 5 to make us both defeated. I guess would be how you would say that.
X1s.
Yeah, X1.
Yeah, I do want to give. We're talking about. We talk Canada a lot, and they're north of us, and they're the defending champions. But they were not second place. Just so
That's true.
we're clear.
I have the
I
leaderboard
do want
up
to. I
here.
do want to. Yeah, I know. I do want to send out a huge shout out to Octagon, because I know last year after the underperformance, they sucked. After being terrible last year, I know Octagon was getting a ton of pressure from the Australian X-Wing players and the non-X-Wing players, or the formerly X-Wing players, about a whole lot of stuff. And this year they turned it around. They were very dominant in their Swiss to qualify. They qualified in first place, and they went 7-2. So they did amazing. So congratulations to the
only
to the-
only losing to the first place and third place team in the event.
Yes. So huge shout out to Australia, Canada again. Their consistency is just. I think their consistency and their work ethic. I think they probably are the ones that I don't know about everyone else, but I know that Canada practices a lot. I know that Canada puts in work and they get together as a team, and it shows with last year's win and this year's third place finishing. So again, big shout out to Canada. England still sucks. They were terrible last year. No, I'm kidding. Those guys are good. No. I know I'm teasing with Canada, but also as far as shout outs go, they're good. England is good, but they're expected to be good. But they are good. But no, the other shout outs that I wanted to send out real quick about just XTC in general has to go to Mexico and Colombia, because at the start of just the whole Swiss rounds and everything, Colombia was not at all expected to make the finals, and they made the finals. They ended up, I think they started out 4-0, if I'm not mistaken.
They were in a all 5-team group, so they were 3-0, which clinched.
Yeah.
And then they finished 4-0.
There you go. So Colombia, like, huge shout out to them. I mean, they've got a very small community as it relates to X-Wing, so they have fewer players to choose from, and they have fewer resources just because the distribution to South America is pretty limited. So huge shout out to them. I know they were super excited to just to be in the position to advance, and also to Mexico, who not only were not expected to make it, regardless of which Swiss they were put into, but they got put in with United States 2, the islands, Poland, Spain. So they were probably expected to come in 5th, and they ended up qualifying. And not only did they qualify, they qualified and while qualifying, beat both Poland and Spain, and defeated Canada in the finals. So big shout out to Fernando for putting that team together, for Jorge. I know Jorge Cas put he was like their MVP. So huge shout out. And I don't know if you guys here on the team that played, if you got any special shout outs before we move on to any of the teams, any of your opponents, or anything like that.
I mean, I would like to say, again, a huge shout out to the Colombian team, because they had a tough draw, and the time zones were absolutely killing them in the finals. So even though they had to drop, there is absolutely no shame and nothing at all to be disappointed with their performance. Getting to the finals at all, and then having to go up against US, France, Canada, rounds 1, 2, 3, in a time zone where it's miserable to play, just to be awake, let alone to play a game that requires a lot of concentration and skill. And they put up a fight. The score doesn't really reflect it, but a lot of those games were close, and they did take a game off of France. They played well throughout the entire tournament, and they deserve all the props for it.
They beat more French teams than we beat.
That's true. You know what?
True.
You know what? That's a stat. That's true. Dang, they got more wins on France than we did. Yeah. So we expect Colombia to be back next year. Just a little bit more prepared for the long night.
And hopefully something will happen structurally to limit how unpleasant that has to be for people in our time zones.
Yeah, it's been a big discussion, especially post tournament. Unfortunately, with 2 Oceanic teams and 4 North American teams, there's a very limited window that wasn't playing at our Friday 1 a.m. or 1 p.m. And not playing until Monday morning for Australia. So we had a very narrow 36 hours that we could pull off the event.
Well, I mean, it was Friday at 9 p.m., which was pretty close from me on the Pacific, which I think kind of illustrates the point. If USI got in, I believe Daniel Leon's in Hawaii, which means the 9 p.m. for me start would be, I believe, a 7 p.m. start for him, if I'm remembering the Hawaiian time zone correctly. So, it makes it, the more spread the time zones get and the more teams you have, which you want, you want the whole world to be participating. Yeah. It just gets harder and harder to schedule a semi-continuous event.
Yeah, and as much as we were offering maybe splitting it into the different time zones, I do think that is something special about all playing together at once, getting that camaraderie, either through the league hall or I think it was the lounge hall, is what they are calling it, and being able to interact with all the players from the different teams all at once. Really felt like it was one single community going through the event.
And shockingly, during the event, there was like a sort of group acknowledgement of, if we're going to complain about things, let's not complain about the time zone until afterwards. So instead, let's talk about the weather. And you had everything from, I believe, in Australia on Saturday, it was like 40C or something ridiculous, whereas the Canadians were dealing with, like, I think minus 10C. And then it was just a huge set of other things to complain about and bond over of, man, the weather sucks everywhere, doesn't it?
Yes, indeed. Ryan, did you have any other thoughts that come to mind from that we could talk about?
So after all these games you guys have played, now granted, the format of having, match creation via your pairings and whatnot can obviously skew some of the outcomes or like the advantages or disadvantages any particular list could have. But what sort of things did you learn throughout all the XTC that you can now attribute and bring to the table for when you play in a normal Swiss large-scale event, especially with Worlds on the horizon?
So I think one of the things that when you know is like going in, like whether it's in the group stage going into a week, you're like, well, what are my bad matchups? And then for the finals, like you don't even know like what who it is you're going to be playing. So like practice matches are, they're a lot more random because you don't know like what it is you're going to be flying against. Is then leaning into like, well, what are my bad matchups, and then learning like what can I do to put myself in a position to be able to win. Because I know for Republic lists, it's like Resistance and NFO feel like are the worst matchups for them, and so then like really practicing to find like what is like that what is that combination of like claiming objectives and what ships to go after to really put yourself in a position where you can have a chance to win. And then for your matchups that you're stronger, is just like then sticking with the formula that consistently like puts you in a position to win. But yeah, I would say especially like those weaker matchups is really leaning into that and finding what it is that is going to give you a chance, because if you have a chance, then you're still gonna you can still be able to notch the win in the Swiss, especially in the Swiss format. Like you're not going to get the you don't have Canada to set you up for success, and so just leaning into that and learning like what those lists want to do and then mitigating against it.
Yeah, I'd also say in the same realm that it's definitely taught us to I can more or less kind of sim out a game in my head about who I think would win and like what it would take, but this event had trained me looking at pairings and stuff to do that just as quickly as possible, and that assessment, what we were talking about, is something that you need because you have even less time in person, right? You had to just maybe a couple minutes before you had to start deploying your first obstacles and objectives from seeing your opponent's list. So like that is definitely a skill that I think you would need to take forward into regular events.
One thing I will say also is just from looking at things, like the weeks where people were like for group stages where we felt prepared, we did well. And the weeks where we felt a little unprepared or a little maybe a little bit not super engaged with the whole preparation thing, they were shakier. And with finals, because we had the list a little bit beforehand, we prepared and there was practices and there was a lot of stuff. And while it may not have been against specific lists, although in some cases it was, just understanding what each faction wants as a whole, like as a general concept, And if it's like a specific archetype, like because there's multiple things in that faction, what those things want. And while there will be specific nitpicks, like, oh, this list has hollow instead of on-reg, so it's going to be a little bit more token cherry and not as much high initiative, like ace play. Like, they still generally want to do the same thing. And before a tournament or just beforehand, just going in and understanding broadly what most of the meta is going to want to do and how it's going to want to play is extremely helpful.
I'll answer DeRoche's question in the chat, which is said, in other words, who's going to take this list of worlds? And if there are no major changes or meta shifts, this is probably what I'll take the worlds.
If I can figure out a way to beat Republic Beef reasonably consistently, then yeah. Otherwise, I will be switching to 5-ship resistance like everyone else.
I've got some stuff cooking that unfortunately we didn't want to fly for XTC, but I respect the captains and coaches' decisions to fly the more consistent stuff rather than just whatever I've got going on. So
I don't doubt Crispy's always cooking. No, I think there's two sides to it, right? Like, I think having a level of consistency and just narrowing down reps over and over and over with games can help fine tune your experience with the list. So I think there's both a pros and cons to each side. If you do take your list that you actually use directly in XTC to Worlds, but also things change, things evolve, and there may be times where you start to find out even more and more in your matchups that maybe you do need to tweak something. Maybe swap out a pilot at the same cost that gives you an advantage somewhere else and doesn't lose anything, or doesn't lose as much in other things. You know, I think a lot of times people can get caught up in the, you know, because I've done it sometimes, and I've had other friends do this where they focus in on like one pilot or matchup that they're like deathly afraid of. And in all seriousness, in this day in X-wing, it's really hard to find a bad matchup to the scale that we're used to in the past for a lot of players that it may have played early second edition or late first edition, where you just brought a list and you just lost because you didn't have the bid, or it was just, you know, the auto counter to it, right? Because of objectives, because of how you perform in the game can matter a lot more than the list you bring. So I think a lot of times the small tweaks you do can just make sure that it's a get you wins versus win more type of thing. So make sure you cover as many of your matchups that you can without hyper focusing on one of them, because you may not ever see it in Swiss. Like, I went to the last first edition Worlds knowing that I was going to tank my matchup against the old Ghost Fen, and I never played against it. So it can happen, and sometimes I could have played that whole event and played 3 of them. Who knows? But I think right now, because of like I said, objectives, and in a much larger Swiss format, I think just getting reps, knowing your list, and fine-tuning it to a degree that you find the wrinkles that make it that much little better at what it's doing, or covering a potential matchup that doesn't lose you your advantages you've put into the list. So, yeah.
You bring up a great point about what I would call like silver bullet lists, where I did preface like a long time ago that like whatever to the players, that whatever list you bring, you're going to have to be comfortable just like being matched up against Triple Arc and Han. Like, I can't like everybody's got to be prepared for it, because while we can control a lot of the pairing process, we can't like force these pairings, especially when it's like as far as the attacker, right? We can only choose so much of that. But at the same time, though, not having a silver bullet, just having everybody kind of flying what they're comfortable with and what they think could handle these lists, even if it's not the preferred matchup, at least be able to have a strategy for these different factions. Luckily, we only had to prepare for 5 factions for the event, so it did reduce quite a bit of our prep time in finding out those good matchups, which that would be my final piece of like my thoughts going forward for the XTC is that we're gonna have to go back to 7 factions every single. I mean, we brought 2 extra Imperials, but that's just what Longshank thinks. Otherwise, every other team in the event brought the same Republic, Rebels, Empire, First Order, Resistance, dropping Scum, and CIS. And I think between making pairings more interesting of having 7 factions and having just forcing you to fly these lesser factions in the finals makes for a more interesting play. So hopefully next year we'll have to be able to expand it, get 7 players per team. But I don't want to keep you guys all night. But if you have any final thoughts, any shout-outs, something that we didn't cover before we let you go, feel free to jump in. Let us know.
Shout out to all of my opponents from XTC. Everybody I played was super awesome. Like, I didn't have a bad interaction the whole time, and a lot of people take it really seriously, so it's easy to I guess get caught up in it, and get frustrated. But all of my opponents were great, so shout out to them.
Yeah, echoing the same. Like, all my opponents were amazing. Particularly, Fernando, the Team Mexico captain, he's an awesome player and better person. And then same thing with Andrew Oler. Was just plays at such a high level, but just really awesome person. And yeah, those 2 matches I will remember very fondly for a long time. So, but yeah, all my opponents were just really great people, and yeah, the whole experience was outstanding from start to finish.
I'd like to shout out the judge team, specifically Piffo and Funwalk, I believe, just for putting the whole thing on, because without them, we wouldn't have had this to talk about or to enjoy and to remember fondly, or to win in our case.
Yeah,
Also,
the true unsung heroes of the event, the tournament organizers and judges.
I was going to say
Very much.
shout out to all the streamers who could bring the energy and the fun of the XTC to all the people that weren't playing this year. So that's GSP, Firecast, Funwalk also as well.
And Funwalk, I believe, did it in English for everybody as well. But yeah, we had a great relationship with Firecast. We were bouncing ideas off of each other. And we should have each of those games up on YouTube probably in the next 2 weeks or so. So if you missed the action live, you can find it there as well. Anybody else?
I'd add something in, but I'm just echoing what everybody else said.
That works.
This whole thing was fantastic.
I would echo the same. I didn't have a bad experience. There were some miscommunications about rules, but ultimately, if that's the biggest thing I have to complain about, it was a very good event. So awesome. You guys can stick around. We're going to talk about the I was going to call it Oceanic. What is the actual name of it? The Singapore World Qualifier. Otherwise, it made me so proud. We're getting cards made, and prizes shipped out. That's who knows. We'll probably take months to get those prizes, but that's fine. But we did. I don't think I saved it, but for you guys, I think Levi posted it. I did make a joke that you better wait to send that proof of the card until it says first place on it, and now it does. XTC World Champions. So we're gonna get some cards made with everybody's name on it. Marksmanship, which is hilariously an upgrade that was in every single one of our lists. Technically, Void Vader didn't have a choice in taking it, but I think everybody else chose to take Marksmanship in their squads. So a little unifying upgrade for everybody there. So yeah, overall, it's been great.
Thank you, Will.
Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Will.
Thanks. Y'all
Thank
are
you.
awesome.
Thanks, Will.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. Making me so proud. You should be proud of yourselves as well. Hard fought night, hard fought weekend, and yeah, in the prestigious 8-1. A lot of people were asking like, "What's it going to take to win? What's it going to take? Well, what's our tiebreakers?" Just like last year when Canada went 8-1, that's what it takes to take it all. So very proud. Again,
Secret
of you guys.
sauce. If there's no tie, you don't need to break it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, like I said, you feel free to stay, but we got to move on. We got about less than a half hour or so left of the podcast. There should be plenty of time to go over the Singapore World Qualifier. I'll put it up in our lists here, or in our notes. I'll post it in the chat if you guys want to take a look at it as well in our Twitch chat here. So let's go over to that Longshanks. So
Do we know if this got finished, because it's still missing the final game?
well, I know who came in second place, so
Okay. All right.
No, who came in first and second?
yeah. Yeah. I guess that's true. It doesn't show the final there, but we can take a look at the lists after the Swiss rounds. It looks like XY Lim, a well-known player in the Singapore and worldwide, gets to the final against a player named Tigress. Both of them flying the Galactic Republic. So why don't we start with the winning list then? If I'm not mistaken, XY got second.
Yeah, if XY is listening to this, and if he's not, somebody tell him, XY, you suck. You let somebody
really
come
tone
into your
it down
country.
on the word suck around here, but
Okay,
continue.
you are bad. You are not good. Like, how can you let
Not
somebody
good.
come into your country and take the Singapore national away from your country? Like, come on, XY. I think you have to go to Worlds and prove that you don't. Don't like the other word. That you don't are not bad. That bad, not you are not bad, or however else you say it. And I'm saying that specifically because he said he may not go to Worlds, so we got to throw him some shade until he does.
Oh, I hope he does.
He better, or else he's gonna end up not good, bad, good, not.
Well, we'll get to XY's list in just a second. Let's talk about Tigress's winning squad here. It's got the Siege of Coruscant, as you should have expected. We got Kickback, Siege of Coruscant, shooting diamond borons, handing out evades. Oddball in the Arc 170 with that selfless, so important. Wolf, it was Siege of Coruscant. We have Jag of Siege of Coruscant, Axe as well, not only handing out locks, but being able to throw evades to other ships. And then Slider with Predator. Of course, Slider can be slipping around with those 2 bank side slips. But a beefy list. 3 arcs, 2 torrents, and a Z95 can be a lot to chew through. we saw quite a bit in the XTC where people were calling this a either I forget if they were saying, we had an argument about whether it's a cancel or control, but essentially a blue deck in Magic where you do something and the enemy responds by just canceling what you tried to do. And this is very much what this felt like, where with those evades from the torrents, being able to support the different ships and each other. Then, of course, like Jag giving locks to Wolf and himself, Axe giving locks, Oddball taking the selfless. Like, it really seems so cohesive, and it's kind of hard to put a crack in that armor and get these ships separated. So, yeah, with some good flying.
Yeah, once you do, though, it really does fall apart real quick.
Torrent's not great ships, it turns out. Even with munitions and great support abilities of throwing the evades and focuses and stuff, they're still Torrents at the end of the day.
Are they really though? Because I mean, we're throwing a lot of praise over to the bombers, but I mean, they're still 2 agility. They got 1 less.
I think the Siege
than a bomber,
have,
but
6
The Siege has 6, yeah.
So they are bomber
Oh, they
or
do?
X-wing equivalent, yeah.
Okay, so not X-wing because the shields make a big difference. But we're throwing a
It's
lot of
the maneuverability, the dial of like once they get stressed, they are really hard to control and get back on target. And
yeah,
also,
but so are the bombers. If the bombers get stressed,
True.
they have similar dials to the bombers. They have, but the difference is that in Empire, the bombers are there to provide cover and to provide, the bombers are there to provide assistance to other ships, whether it's by, throwing off the bombs or, just drawing attention from Vader or Rack or whatever else. Right here, like, they're providing cover by virtue of like having evades and stuff around to throw around, but they're also benefiting as well. So you have the Born for this throwing them focuses. You have one giving the other evades, or you have Oddball if you position them right. One of the worst things about we were talking about similar to an X-wing, but the X-wing has a shield to eat crit. They don't have a shield to eat a crit. They have an Oddball to eat a crit. So I don't think the Torrents are as bad as people make them out to be. They're 2 agility, 6 health with potentially unlimited focuses, maybe an extra evade, and the ability to pass crits on to a shielded buddy. So not bad at all.
how many Torrents have you played?
I've played a fair amount, and I actually played a similar list to this, with the only difference being instead of taking Jag, I took an I3 and another. It was a 7-ship, so it was similar to this, but it was like a 7-ship version with 2 Z95s. And the Torrents, especially having Tucker next to Oddball, that way Tucker can hold on to his and dedicated. I didn't have Predator. I had dedicated on both Z95s. But I2 with a barrage rocket is not so bad when you have many ways to allow him to keep his focus token to get it off. So
He's talking Axe.
I did play it for
it's
a
all
while.
the same thing.
Yeah.
Tucker Axe, yeah, the barrage rocket one. Yeah.
Barrage rocket. Yeah. That's true. I mean, don't have to spend your focus on defense if an arc could just throw you one. Yeah, makes sense to me. A very powerful list, like I said. You have to. Steve mentioned that he just slams the decimator into their formation to try to break it up. Other lists can try to flank it, get behind them. I mean, that's might be the strength of the arcs, though, is that you really can't just like flank them. You really had to work that hourglass. And even then, you had to bust through all of the defensive tech that they have, keeping them alive.
And by the way, he is from the Philippines, so it
He's
was
from the Philippines. Awesome.
yeah. So the Philippines
Okay.
ended up winning that one.
Okay. Very good team. Very good list to make it all the way to the top of this tournament. Take a look at XY's list. This was the second place squad. Unsurprisingly, when you have Republic, you also have more Arcs. We got Oddball and Wolf, both Siege of Coruscant, and Jag, Siege of Coruscant. This going with the more traditional squad of Anakin, Skywalker, and the Ada, using that Siege of Coruscant, and then Padme with marksmanship, passive sensors, and proton torpedoes, ripped right out of the meta, and still put it with a good pilot and can still take on any list it needs to. The Padme, though, I feel like, I know, James, we go back and forth on this. I still think Padme is the liability here. And like, especially comparing these two lists, this list has a very like specific ship it's trying to protect, whereas the other one, you don't care if they're shooting Jag or a Torrent or a Slider. You don't care who they're shooting. Whereas this, you really got to protect Anakin and Padme, who don't really have that as much support. Any thoughts on Padme still showing up in the top tables?
I mean, checks out. It's worked before. Did passive proton torpedo good, especially when backed up by all the Born for this focuses, and you done a speed maneuver evade. So not easy to kill. Usually Padme's, unless she's in a really weird spot of situations, she's not an early target. You're burning the arcs down. And her ability can help you save yourself, damage on your own ships and potentially do more damage to opposing ships. Sometimes there's games where it doesn't do anything, and sometimes there's games where it does a lot. So, and it's an arc that a lot of people will overcorrect themselves or not pay attention to when they deal with it. So, standardly, still good.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Well flown. XY. I want to see him at Worlds. I don't want to play him at Worlds, though. Fantastic player. Let's take a look at... I'm trying to make sure that Dawi and KF Lee here are other finalists. We got lists for them here. Yeah, it looks like. So this is was interesting to me. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the WEI of this correctly, but I'm going to say Dawi. Brings a scum list and gets into the top cut tier. This one has Fenrau utilizing Crackshot, Cutthroat, Mandalorian optics, and Beskar reinforced plating. Cutthroats, when another ship is destroyed, you either clear your stress or you get a charge back. That could be the Mandalorian charge or one of your two Beskar charges, or even a second Crackshot. That'd be crazy. I haven't seen that, so very interesting. Brings Cad Bane, Synced, Kira, Contraband, Cutthroat, Xanadu Blood, Dirge, Proton Cannons, Contraband Cybernetics, Marksmanship, and Cutthroat. Bosk in the Z95 with Deadman ships and Marksmanship. Then Dace Bonearm with Hondo Onaka crew, Contraband Cybernetics, Marksmanship, and Moldy Crow. It feels like this list is built to just watch Bosk just be the tip of the spear and then wait for him to be destroyed with that Deadman switch, so all you guys can get the triggers from Cutthroat. I feel like Cutthroat's very strong, but like nobody's actually utilizing it.
Yeah, I don't feel like it's. We've seen a lot of it, but I mean, we also just haven't seen a ton of scum. ships.
That's
Sub
true.
scum lists.
That's true. Often overlooked. I mean, these are all the best of the best for scum. So I like this list composition: 4-point rogues, 4-point moldy crow, and now a 6-point fen rao. You still have to fly fen rao. Like when you invest 6 points into a ship, you must fly him well. Got to be getting in and out of engagements effectively. Marcel, what do you think about Hondo Onaka crew on Dace? I know you've been praising who?
Crew?
Crew. Hondo Onaka.
Oh, Hondo Onaka. That's the the double jam coordinate.
Coordinate an enemy and jam an enemy, or coordinate one of your friends to jam one of your friends. So in this instance, you coordinate Fen Rao, you jam Bosk, right?
Yeah. And I'm a huge fan of him just because he's very it sounds, in theory, it sounds like it's a bad idea to coordinate a friendly or to jam yourself. But if you're flying a list that has enough ships, or if you're flying against enough opponents, which nowadays with 5 being probably the average, it's very consistent because you can usually find a stressed ship to coordinate on the enemy side, and it's usually very easy to find or to actually preset and just target lock everyone up front. So you can jam off a kind of like a target lock on a rock or something like that, or a multiple, especially since it's at range 3, for multiple rounds, to where that detraction is not so much of a detraction anymore, because it's basically just to coordinate. And specifically with Dace Bonearm and Moldy Crow title, he's got that. He's got at least a focus. If he, assuming he takes a focus round 1 and he starts coordinating as soon as round 2. So he's got that going for him already. Like even from round 2, if he starts coordinating round 2, he's just taking off a jam from friendly. And again, in the mix of things, especially when you're playing against something like Boy Vader, for example, which there's a ton of Boy Vader. Boy Vader tends to consume his target locks pretty consistently, or change targets, from one ship to a different ship, and being able to jam him and just basically turn his gun into a 2-die gun is really good. So huge fan of it on ships that can carry around focus. Yeah, I mean,
you bring up a great point about not only do you basically get 3 free Hondos for your team, everybody just takes a lock round 1 and you just slowly jam off the locks from each of your friends, but you brought up a great point about coordinating the enemy, and this list does have Cad Bane, who can force a stress onto a ship when he hits with their attack. Then that could set you up to coordinate that ship and jam somebody else. So I didn't really thought about forcing the stress onto your opponent as well. If they could recognize that, they're like, oh, well, we want those Hondo coordinates, so let's not stress ourselves or whatever.
Yeah, and there's usually somebody that if they moved first, there's usually somebody that bumped and has a stress, or if you're playing against I5 and I6, there's usually somebody that bumped the previous round and is still stressed this round. So there's always somebody to coordinate that just is unable to take advantage of it.
Yeah. Looks good. We'll take a look at the last top 4 squads here, and then Marcel, I'll give you a bit to talk about on the event you attended. Let's see what KF Lee had brought. This is an Imperial squad, it looks like. Boy Vader, Merrick Stell, this one with proton rockets. Big heart out. Heart. to the Proton Rocket Merc. We also have Tomex Bren with that set Salvo Barrage Rocket. Juno with Proton Rockets. Major Rhymer with Saturation Salvo Barrage Rockets. And Seismic Charges on there as well. This is a list that I was taking to a couple similar. I didn't have the second bomber in there, but I'm familiar with those Proton rockets from American Juno. Very effective if you're unable to get the lock through road or something like that, or a bump as well. Being blocked in being you have to take the red focus because you're a 3 agility ship, but then you could still Proton rocket potentially someone behind the blocker can make this list have quite the spike damage for it. So I'm not surprised to see it here in the top cut. Yeah, very exciting event. Glad to still have events all over the world on these world qualifiers. I think we're down to just 4 or 5 left for December and January. I know LVO. I think there's just a couple other ones that they had listed on their website. So it's ticking down. I think there's only one more in the United States. I know the previous, what used to be the Minox. Now I think it's just called the X-Wing Community Group.
About?
The X-Wing Community Group, the former Minox Squadron podcast, for listing off the World Open qualifiers for North America, and yeah, we only have one remaining for it, but exciting to still be reminded that there's world qualifiers happening all over the world, and hopefully then we can pull a bunch of players from around the world to Adepticon in March, really make it feel like a true Worlds. But before we go, Marcel, you alluded to being the second best player in your household. What did the cats pick up X-Wing? Is that what it was?
Yeah, actually, they left, but yeah, they did. That probably makes me like the 4th best.
The 4th best.
player. Yeah. Actually, the cats always win because whenever we try to play on the table, the cats always do a critical hit on the entire table. It's like at once, so just like cannonball. It's like a cannonball critical hit. So yeah, they're a 4-legged proton bomb. So yesterday was the store championship for Spellbound game, 16 players, and super excited and super proud that Kayla's been, I think she's been 3-1, and as you guys know, like 4-0, 3-1 when you have a 16-person tournament, have 4 rounds, there's 3-1 just doesn't cut it. So she's been 3-1, I think, like 4 different times. So she's been on the cusp of that world invite, and finally yesterday she got it. So she did the 4-0, and super excited. She actually made one change, and it's the change that you were mentioning to Levi earlier. I suggested on Saturday night. I suggested switching wedge to hull, the Y-wing.
For reference,
so
she's been flying a very standard 5-ship Han Rebels.
Yeah, the engine, chopper, and proton rocket on Keo version, and she ended up taking wedge out. I suggested it on Saturday night. She put hull in, and out of the 4 games, she said she landed the advanced proton torpedo 3 out of the 4 games. So I call that a success, and including in the final against Brandon Prokos. she ended up landing the advanced proton torpedo and getting all 5 hits in on Poe, on YT 1300 Poe.
Wow.
So she blocked him with. It was pretty cool. She blocked him with Luke, and she got the proton off on Poe. Anyway, super excited for her. I know she's been excited, and I got my over here, you can't see it, but over there I've got like my trophy wall, and she's already starting to push all my stuff to the side, to get to make room for her trophy. So
Nice.
super cool. I'm excited. She's excited. And yeah, I mean, maybe we're not the only married couple in qualifying, but the
I
only
think
married couple I
think
know that are.
Crispy is family related, but not spouse.
Not married.
Crispy sister, I believe. Kat got a world invite, but I don't think.
There's siblings. There's plenty of siblings, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know you're saying it specifically because it's like a female sibling, like a female and male sibling.
Yeah, it's about as close as I can think of right now, off the top of my head, anyways.
So anyway, I'm happy. I was excited, and also big shout out to Brandon and tough, really tough. It was on the 312. Nick Sperry was streaming it, and there was a bit of confusion. So the judge or the TO or the owner of the store, whatever you want to call him, like he walked around and he said, time in the round. And Brandon was up 12-10. So they shook hands and they're like, yeah. And then I walked over there to like hug Kayla and say, hey, I'm sorry, good try, get him next time. And then Nick Sperry runs over and he's like, no, you guys are still playing. You got one more round. Because I guess the stream table had a different timer than like the rest of the.
Sure, it sometimes does, because there's an extra like minute of like, no, don't go to your table, go to this one, and yeah.
Yeah, so they started a little late, but it's got to, it feels a little bad. Like you think you won and you're done, and you're like, no, you got one more to go. And then it was 12-10, and then Kayla ended up picking up all 3, not picking up, but pressing all 3 buttons. So she ended up winning 13-12 because she hit, the buttons, and so she won on objectives on the final round. So it's I can imagine how it feels on the opposite end, so it kind of sucks. But I'm at the same time excited that Kayla won. So anyway.
Well, that's what happens when you're playing with your close friends. Brandon's been playing for just as long as any of us. So he'll get his win. I'm sure.
He'll get it, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Kayla then committed to Adepticon, I assume? Has to now.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've got a store champ in January. We're filling in the minimum 16, so then we're going to LVO, and then if things work out, we're going to LVO. I've got tickets to Sith Taker Open, even though that's not a world qualifier. So we'll see if we
England.
In England, yeah, and I think it's Manchester. Yeah, I think it's Manchester. So if everything works out, I've got the tickets already. So if everything works out, we'll be in Manchester for February, and then Worlds in March. So it'll be a very X-Wing heavy first quarter next year if everything goes well.
Oh man, what a shame that would be, huh? Awesome.
What a shame. What would be?
They twisting your arm, making you travel and play X-Wing.
Oh, I thought you mean like what a shame that would be. Like what?
No. Speaking of Adepticon, though, as a note, as we're counting down the days to where tickets are on sale, that's not yet. but they did post their event information. So if you are looking forward to Adepticon, start wanting to look at different events that you can attend, they already have that up. And I believe registration opens January 7th. So we're still about a month away for actually signing up for events. But like I said, they had just opened up that event information. So definitely check it out in your preparations for Worlds. We are just out of time. We're going to be back next week talking Draft League. Ascendancy's taking on 5 straight boosts in the finals this week. Very exciting. Did we touch on the Battle over Indoor?
No, we're not touching on it.
Okay. Well, I mean, like, did we say we're not touching on it already?
No, you jumped right into the XTC.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna pause on looking at the leaks. Just wanted to mention it. You can find them. You can take a look at what was released. Without that press release, we'll hold off on it for now, just in case there's a last-minute change or something. We just want to have the exact information before we dive too deep onto it. But still, very exciting to hear that
It's still a go.
it's still on the way. That boat trip's getting longer and longer, it seems, but
On the boat.
I'll get here eventually. So it's positive news for those looking forward to that expansion. Anyways, did I miss anything before we get out of here?
I think that's it.
Cool. For everyone out there, stay safe, stay smart. Gold Squadron out.
Thank you to ISO, Danko, Baffle, Trojan, Prophet, Shadow, Tycho, Spice, Raider, Lancer, Fallen, Row 6, 626, Chief, and J List, our Grand Admiral patrons. And all of our Gold Squadron patrons and community members, thank you for your support. Gold Squadron out.